You took off your t-shirt, and I looked at you, and I was like, "Jeez, this guy is huge. This guy is huge." But I must say, bud, you are in phenomenal shape.
Thanks,
Like,
man. And I just think it's like kind of the way that God made us, like guys like you and myself, we kind of created for security and for protection. But I said to my wife, okay, I need to be part of this.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
When God shows you your purpose or your home, you want to be there.
Definitely.
Yeah.
You'll take that flight on a Saturday evening to land so that you can be there.
Yeah,
Because you said, guys, you lifted your hand up. You said, guys, you can count on me. You can
Yeah.
depend on me. I'm going to be there.
I don't like having eyes on me. I don't. I want to be hidden.
Yes.
But unfortunately, in our job, we can't be hidden. We've got to be there in case something happens. So
you kind of have to understand that you're still responsible for the church's reputation.
Yes.
So
100%.
however you respond,
and I'm being honest now when I say this, will you put your life in the way to save Pastor Ut's life? I'm just saying.
share with us some of your crazy experiences that you had on your training with Aiden. Please
Yeah.
walk us through that. I am very excited to hear this. Yeah.
And I mean, everything that I would have done would have been the wrong thing to do until I learned the correct way. So, Father God, please open my eye to any threat that starts before it's even started. And I promise you, the 1st of January last year, that exact same thing happened. And you are the leaders of your church.
Definitely.
It is your responsibility to make sure that as much as possible, your church members are safe.
Hey guys, welcome back to another recording with AAB Security. And today I'm your host. I'm going to be sitting here with Dan Hurlin, and we're going to be discussing one of my absolute favorite topics, which is church security. Dan, please introduce yourself.
Cool. How's it? Welcome, everyone. I'm not very well versed when it comes to video stuff, so I'll do my best.
Likewise.
But as Ali said, now my name is Dan Hurlin. I live in Pretoria. So I think I don't know. Do you want some of my background?
Yeah, please, man. Let the audience know who's speaking.
Okay, my background in terms of security.
Sure,
okay,
sure.
So,
everything, powerlifting, security, everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think you and I first met when we got involved in powerlifting together.
Yes.
So I've been competing in powerlifting and strongman on and off for about 20 years.
Sure.
And then I've been competing in sport shooting for about 10 years.
Wow.
And I just think it's like kind of the way that God made us, like guys like you and myself, we kind of created for security and for protection. We are just protectors by heart. You know what I mean? We want to defend weak or innocent people, children, women, etc. That's kind of been the way that God created me. So like I then 2019 I came back to God after 7 years of debauchery, putting it that way.
The prodigal son.
Listen. Yeah, so I came back to God in 2019 after my wife introduced me to CRC Church. Yeah.
Awesome.
So basically I watched a live thing of CRC. I didn't like CRC. I didn't like happy clappies or anything. And I heard this guy speaking the way I speak, the way that it gets to me, by the name of Pastor Ut Boshoff. And then I said to my wife, when I heard that, I like, who's this? And she said, no, it's the pastor from CRC. And I was like, I need to go there. You know what I mean? So I also played the drums since I was a kid.
Okay.
So
how many drums have you broken down?
Sorry?
How many drums have you broken?
Oh, yes, too many. So then what happened is I said to my wife, okay, I need to be part of this.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
When God shows you your purpose or your home, you want to be there.
Definitely.
So Thursday night, I went to the band practice. I spoke to a guy called Lafuno, and Lafuno asked me some questions like, which zone am I in, which pastor? And he could see I didn't know what was going on. Yes. And then he asked me eventually, am I actually a member of the church? And then I said, no. And then he said, well, you've got to be a member of the church to play in the band. Sure. So I was like, okay. So then I spoke to Pastor Hunt, and then the next day filled in the forms, and I was a member of CRC, long story short. So then I remember like just a bit of my testimony. On that Sunday, I went to a church service. My wife again brought me there. And obviously it's very dynamic. You know, people call it happy clappy. Every time the pastor I'd said something or whatever, people stood up around me.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is weird, man. This is like, this is very, you know, like inside, I'll just say to myself, I'm kind of naturally a judgmental person, although God is working on me. I kept on looking around thinking, yes, these people are faking it.
Yeah.
You know, what's going on? And then I remember by the stage, there was a guy who was busy looking, he was like standing there like this or whatever. And I thought to myself, why does a church need a bouncer? Is this guy looking at me? I'm going to knock his head off. like crazy things going through my head.
Sure.
You know, I came, like I said, it was 7 hectic years.
Yeah.
Anyway, so then eventually God put in my heart, he's like, isn't it funny how I'm sitting here? Everyone is like 10 levels up spiritually to where I was, if you can even call it that. Yet I'm the one who's judging them. And then God said to me, how about you shut up? Because that's how God speaks to me, right? Shut up, shut your mouth, sit there, and maybe one day you'll be like them.
Wow.
So that was in 2019.
Sure.
And since then, yeah, I've been a member of CRC. Very, yeah, awesome church. And yeah, give all honor to Pastor Ut as well as my other pastor, Pastor Andre Lombard, who will be speaking about quite a lot. And yeah, then 2021, so I've also done like MMA in the, you know, not MMA, like jiu-jitsu, and I've done all that other stuff. I mean, I was a bouncer at Hatfield Square, the Pretoria Hatfield Square, while I was studying at Tux. So like I said, when God wise, I was like, this is almost like everything we do kind of falls in line with security anyway. It's just who we are. So then 2021, I joined the security team at CRC. And then just kind of progressively, I realized that, okay, there's certain people who've got certain roles in the church, right? So some people, God made them to be able to do small talk, to receive people and smile.
Sure.
And yeah, that's not me.
That's not me
at all. So a lot of those types of guys were in security. There's all just types of people, and I just started recognizing, okay, what happens if something goes down?
Something real happens.
Like I'm saying, there's a live or an active shooter. Everyone talks about active shooters, or even a stabbing, someone going around stabbing, even a guy just fighting someone, or even someone who stands up in the middle of the church service, says to the pastor, F you, you're a liar, F all of you people. How do we deal with that?
Sure.
What are the plans in place to deal with any eventuality that might take place?
Sure.
And I just realized that wasn't really in place, you know, with all respect. And so then I spoke to one of the pastors there, and I just said, look, we need a unit of guys who are, we call it at CRC half salvation.
Sure.
Well, at least in our team.
Yeah.
Not like, So it's guys who kind of, we come from the world and we like rough and tough, but also God uses us because you got to fight fire with fire. So, so when a guy comes into a church or something and he wants to do harm to God's people, who are the men and sometimes women who stand against that to fight violence with violence, and it's righteous violence. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So yeah, 2022 we formed the team where it's a small unit. Usually units like this are very small because it all comes down to trust. Who are the guys who I can trust?
Sure.
Who have my back no matter what. If
100%.
it's a live fire situation or whatever, they're not going to run or use children as cover, or you know, they're going to have your back. You know, and it also comes down to, so it's character. Who are the guys who I can rely on, who's dedicated, who are going to be there when they say that they're there. They're going to look the parts as well, you know, be neat and
100%.
brush their teeth.
100%.
I'm saying like the basics, you know what I mean?
Definitely.
And then on top of that, who's got the aggression and able to make that switch from okay, I'm a godly Christian man to, okay, I'm a godly Christian man who does extreme violence to save people, you know?
Definitely.
So yeah, then we formed that team 2022, and we've just been as a unit training together a lot, growing together. And yeah, we've been just, our sort of mandate really, or our purpose mostly is to protect the sort of core pastors of CRC.
Sure.
As well as their family and all that. Because, yeah, I mean, I'm sure that we'll get into it, but the number of threats and attacks that are happening around the world, as well as, and especially in South Africa, is just like through the roof. I mean, it's like as a spirit realm flipping goes crazy, you know, with everything that's happening now in Israel and, you know, around the world. It's just like everything's just becoming crazier and crazier. Basically, the threat that's happening or coming across to churches as well as pastors is increasing exponentially. So, yeah, that's pretty much a little bit about me, my background and the team that I'm with. In our team, I'm not the leader, if I can put it that way, because I don't really believe in a team with a whole bunch of alpha males.
Sure.
There could be one leader. I'm just the guy who's the sort of communications liaison.
Sure.
But we are all leaders in our team, and yeah, that's what we do. Yeah.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool.
So I have to say this, right? I mean, my first introduction to Dan, this is 2012.
Okay.
So I'm with a mate of mine, very good mate of mine, Leroy,
Yeah.
and I'm going to do my weigh in the day before the meet, and he obviously knew you very well. I didn't know you at all, and he's like, "Oh, let's say hi to Dad. Let's say hi to Dad."
Yeah.
So we got walking over to you, bud, and I mean, you had this Nissan hard body that you
Yeah.
were standing at,
Yeah.
and you took off your t-shirt, and I looked at you, and I was like, "Jeez, this guy is huge. This guy is huge." But I must say, bud, you are in phenomenal shape
Thanks,
right now.
man.
You've dropped a lot of weight right now, eh?
Yeah, so I only took off my shirt because I was intimidated by you guys.
No. Listen, yeah, I was tiny back then. I was really. I mean, now I'm just a
Yeah.
fat kid. Now, I'm a fat kid. But I mean, Jeez, that was my first introduction to you.
Yeah,
And
thanks, man.
I just feel like you've been a solid guy, and it's
Thanks,
amazing
likewise.
how we've reconnected. You
Yeah.
know, like now, and it's amazing how God has taken us both on an incredible journey. And I
Yeah.
said to you the other day that it's so liberating to have this relationship with you,
Yes, yeah.
because
Likewise.
you can often feel like you alone, you know, in this pursuit
Yeah.
that you in. Like for me, I've been in the church security space since 2010. Started in church security,
Awesome.
and that's pretty much been my journey. Is that previously I was a bouncer. That's how I came into the industry.
Yeah.
I was a bouncer that came to do security at a church. Now I came through a security company,
Yeah.
and we were there to do the risk management, COVID protection, etc.
Yes, yeah.
You know, and Dan, it was crazy for me because I wasn't a church person.
Yeah.
I had a very different, you know, background.
Yeah.
Very rebellious kid. I mean, very rebellious kid. At the age of 13, I was listen to me. I was very criminal minded. I was absolutely rebellious.
Yeah.
I was very rebellious. But what a lot of people don't know is prior to that, I was quite bullied. I had some issues, you know, like growing up, etc. I had a lot of issues. So I was a very bullied kid. So going through that rebellion phase, it kind of like brought out that aggression out of me and whatever. So now I evolved from being that bullied kid to becoming this like heavily like aggressive type child, you know, teenager.
Yeah.
And then now I'm looking at my life and I'm going, what am I going to do with myself? Well, I've always wanted to be a bodyguard, you know, and back then it was called bodyguards. Now it's like close protection operatives. And I don't have the money to go do the training. And I mean, you just did some training with Aiden, which we'll touch on now. And I'm very excited to get into that.
Cool.
But I didn't have the money to go do the training and stuff. So I knew that I was going to have to start as a bouncer.
Yeah.
And I was going to have to save up some money, train my butt off, you know, in various different disciplines, as well as obviously lifting heavy weights, etc. And that's what I had to do to get in. But then when I got to church security, I was so conflicted because, man, a guy like me, why am I at church, you know?
Yeah.
But over time, I had to grow into, you know, being the type of person that can be at peace with, okay, God has molded me through everything that I've been through to being this person who I am today.
Yeah.
And I'm not the sweet dude that's going to stand at the door and, you know, usher the people in into their seat. That's not my role.
Yeah.
My role is to be a protector. My role is to be a defender of man.
Yeah.
That is my role. That's the calling on my life.
Awesome.
I do look at myself as the modern day knight that has to protect the kingdom.
Yeah.
That has to, you know, protect the king and the queen.
Yeah.
So it's quite liberating for me, honestly, to be able to sit with someone and to have this relationship with you where you honestly get me. Because a lot of people don't understand. A lot of the guys within the industry, and of course, I mean, I do various other things in the industry, and I always have been, even though church security was like my key focus, and I've made a lot of decisions to be able to stay within that realm of church security. Like I'm saying, within the 14 years, now to be exact, I've done various different contracts, and I've been involved with many other teams and freelanced extensively.
Yeah.
But on a Sunday morning, bud, I'm at church.
Yeah.
And it takes a high level of commitment, of dedication. And that's not something that you can do to prove to someone.
Yeah.
That can only be done with that absolute calling from God. That absolute, like, listen, this is your purpose. This is what you're called to do. And if you're going to respond to this, then it doesn't matter where you are. You'll take that flight on a Saturday evening to land so that you can be there. Because you said, guys, you lifted your hand up. You said, guys, you can count on me. You can depend on me. I'm going to be there. No amount of money in the world is going to make up for that. I mean, I've turned down some jobs where guys in the industry thought that I was insane. Because, I mean, we spoke about this a little bit earlier before this. I got offered so much money to go and take a contract. But for me, it was like, no, buddy. Like, the money is there. I hear what you're saying. But there's this absolute responsibility that I have, you know, to serve my church, where I've been planted at for 14 years. I hear what you're saying about the money, and it sounds amazing. And in our industry, that is like the height of what all guys are working for. And at my age, I'm being offered all of this. And you know, you even after you've made the decision, you kind of go, Lord, like, was that a test or, like, you know? But I'm at peace with every decision I've ever made to walk away from the money, to say no to the money, etc., so that I could be in that position, so that I could, you know, take up that stand. Because the reality, when I look around me, is like, how many guys are like you and I that won't stand up and be like, I'm going to put my life on the line to serve my church. I'm going to put my life on the line. I know that a couple of guys can come through here at any point in time. No one around me is going to actually stand up and do something because maybe there's too many soft people around you, you know. And I mean, I think you can share the sentiments exactly. But, you know, that's the other thing, Dan. I mean, let's touch a little bit on there's competence and there's compliance. Now, I think a lot of times in church security, we take guys with good hearts and we take soft, kind men, and, you know, they're great people. But they're not able to perform the task at hand, like what you said earlier. How would you solve that problem?
I think it's a lot of it's a lot to do with communication, like clarity of roles, if I can put it that way. So I think if I'm correct in saying, you kind of like, let's see who's the best at which job. Is that correct? So yeah, I mean, like you said earlier, there's someone who can smile and greet someone, say, please come to this way, open a door, whatever. Those are the people who God has created that certain way. And you get other people like us who've created us in the way that He's created us to, like you said, literally put our bodies on the line. I mean, when we formed our team, the first question I've asked every single one on this team was to say, look me in the eyes. If there were to be a live fire situation, bullets going, what, and I'm being honest now when I say this, will you put your life in the way to save Pastor Ut's life? I'm just saying. Like, and if the answer was, I'm not quite, you know, whatever. And I mean, I'm not saying like we're stupid. Obviously, we put all of the plans and everything in place to make sure that never happens. But it might happen. That's the reality of what we deal with. If we're carrying firearms, or, you know, if we are in the position that we are in and we are doing the job that we're doing, we must understand that the risks come with it as well.
Definitely.
So, like you said, unfortunately, you get a lot of guys, like we mentioned earlier, and I'd be honest about it before doing Iran's course as well. I thought, you know, I'm a big boy. I've been competing for almost 20 years in strength sports. I've carried a firearm, been doing sports shooting for 10 years. I know how to handle myself. But within the first day of the color course, I realized that's not actually the truth. You know what I mean? So that's why with guys who wired like us, we've got a very heavy mandate on our calling in God's purpose.
I believe
that is, we have always got to be ready. We've always got to be trained, fit, sharpen up our skills, run, like, let's say, airsoft or whatever kind of drills in your actual church, run scenarios, train together as a team. Where, I mean, even with my team as a guy, we've all got names. We've got call signs for the radio for my team. So his name is Slick. His actual name is Steon. Love you, brother. And like him and I, we usually, traditionally, I was number one and he was number two. So like it often happened like we just flow together so well, we don't even need to think about. And now that we're switching up roles and stuff in the team, Now other guys are shifting in number one. We're moving all around and all that stuff. We just flow. It's like last night at church as well. I was supposed to be in a position, but then I actually ended up in another position. We just move around and we just flow together as a team. Yeah. So
Sure. Awesome, eh?
yeah.
I think it's awesome when you can speak about that competence
Yeah.
and compliance.
Yeah.
The training part,
Yeah.
the heavy mandate that's on us. I think about it in the way where it never ends for us
Yeah.
because we have to go to gym.
Yeah.
We have to actually invest money to go to the shooting range
Yeah.
every week or every month. I don't know how often you shoot.
Yeah.
Personally, I'm there all the time.
Yeah.
So, I look at like, not that I look down on, other departments or anything like that, but what we do doesn't just happen
Yeah.
on a Sunday morning
Yeah.
and then when church is over on Sunday. Other departments gets that where they
Yeah.
can come serve,
Yeah.
and then they leave,
Yeah.
they come maybe for a meeting in the week and then they leave. For us, it's like every day we get up, we go
Yeah.
to gym. Every day we selective about what we eat. It's a lifestyle. It's a way of life for us. It's not like, oh, this is what we do because we wanna come serve.
Yeah.
No, this is our calling,
Yeah.
and it's a way of life for us, and that's what we do.
Yeah, I just want to jump in there quickly, and also, and I'm sure that you're the same, although we haven't discussed this, but honestly, like if I could have it my way, that us doing what we do at CRC, if I could rather be invisible, I would prefer that.
Definitely.
I don't like being at the front with, I mean, it's a 7,000 seater auditorium, and also like I travel quite a lot to go to other events, CRC events, all that kind of stuff. I don't like having eyes on me. I don't. I want to be hidden.
Yes.
But unfortunately, in our job, we can't be hidden. We've got to be there in case something happens. So it's also the thing of you get, unfortunately, some guys who think, oh, check that guy. He's like, the main man. I want to be like that. But it's like, okay,
No, but
guess
what?
You don't, because what are you doing at 11 o'clock on a Sunday evening?
Yes.
Can I tell you what I'm doing and my team's doing? We're doing protection at the church. That's what we're doing when everyone is nice, fast asleep and all that stuff. So the thing is, you've got to remove ego completely.
Definitely.
You know what I mean?
Definitely.
We're doing this as a ministry. We're doing this as a service to
Sure.
God first and foremost, to protect the pastors and his people. As soon as you start making this thing about, it's about me, you're looking for trouble.
Then you've lost it already.
100%,
I firmly believe then you've lost it already. Once it becomes an ego-driven thing, you've kind of lost it already.
Yeah.
Dan, share with us some of your crazy experiences that you had on your training with Aiden. Please walk us through that. I am very excited to hear this.
Yeah, so it was a 3-week CPO course that I did, my first ever CPO course. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's Idan Nabolnik with Kala. So I mean, I know people have spoken a lot in this industry, but I don't care because what I wanted to find was what I could personally see was the toughest, meanest, most realistic, where I get beaten every day. I just wanted to get manhandled and abused to the point where, hopefully, God willing, in a real life situation, I'll be able to save lives and make it through.
Definitely.
So, yeah, man, it was absolutely brutal. I mean, it's just, I'm saying like going to the shooting range, strobe lights, like, I mean, I don't even, there's so much that happened. I don't even know how to unpack it, but it's just, like from the most basic to the most advanced things, completely just redefined everything that I knew or that I thought. I got, like I mentioned earlier, I got brought down to size. Like I just got brought down to earth very, very quickly in doing the course. But yeah, it's proper Israeli style. Another thing is, just remember that in Israel, as well as you see it now around the world, as synagogues and all that kind of stuff. Obviously, there's a huge threat against Israel Jews, synagogues, etc. So when it comes to them, this is not like a fun thing.
No.
Oh, I'm a CPO, I'm a whatever.
No.
This is their daily existence. When they wake up, there could be a siren. I don't know if you've seen videos there, incoming rockets, whatnot.
Yes.
This is their daily thing, is to deal with terrorists. To deal with terrorists and all that kind of stuff. So their whole mindset is completely something different to what we experience in South Africa.
Definitely.
Over here in South Africa, it's a lot to do with being overt. So it's like, you've got all the flashing lights and the reputation and I even heard about CPOs now who are apparently carrying rifles in the bags while they're on duty, with like the golden chains and the whatever. You're just looking for
clowns.
You're just attaching, you're attracting trouble, basically.
Yeah.
So the Israeli way is just completely, you're in the background, you sort of blend in with everything.
Very cool.
And yeah, very, very, very.
DreamStream, a place to create yourself. Record video, music, and podcasts in our full-service studio. Record video, music, and podcasts in our full-service studio. DreamStream, a place to create yourself.
It's very intelligent. Everything is, yeah. But yeah, basically, I just endured 3 weeks of getting beaten every day, getting slapped around. The mental side of it for me was the most hectic, where you get put into scenarios where, again, there's like, you got to do push-ups and sprints and everything before you even do anything. So you are completely exhausted. Then the thing comes to you is like, your wife is bleeding. She's in the other room. And you can't even, because now you're trying to do a mag change.
Yes,
you know?
yes.
You can't even do a mag change because you're getting slapped and you're getting like, you know, and it's, so, you know, there's a lot of language I won't use on this podcast, but it's just a psychological thing of your wife is in another room, she's bleeding, and you can't even do a mag change, be a man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was completely exhausting. I never knew that my body could sweat that much.
Yeah.
Even like my in the inside of my shoes was, you know, when you're walking, it's
Squeaking.
that was from my own sweat.
Oh my word.
So I mean, like I explained earlier, even my Glock, which I had all tricked out with special sport shooting stuff, when you are in and out of the sand and the dust, and you having sand thrown in your face while you're busy, just take your firearms back to standard, please. That's all I want to say.
We spoke about this earlier. I mean, I'm so happy for you to just start unpacking some of that, because there's a lot of guys that's literally, they're all about the optics.
100%,
now, I mean, I get looked at because I'm like, I don't run any optics on my firearms. I want it standard, the way that I buy it out of the shop. That's how I carry my firearms.
Yeah.
For me, Dan, it's obviously I've been doing this for a good few years. So if I'm working on various different teams or whatever firearm I get issued is the firearm I'm going to use. I don't have time to quickly change a spring, put an awesome optic on. So I've just always wanted to be comfortable to pick up the most standard firearm, standard steel sights, buddy, no night sights or anything, and be able to run with it. You know what I'm saying? Or even if you're privileged to be able to can work with your own firearm, etc., and something happens and you have to take one of your guys' firearms. Now you've got all this amazing optics, and you've been training with it for however long. Now you pick up a stock standard one. All of a sudden you can't shoot. And I see this at the shooting range all the time. I mean, guys come all the time with their really awesome firearms, and it's kitted out with the most amazing gear. Guess what? They take my firearm, they can't run. For me, it takes like 3, 4, maybe 7 rounds to figure out your optic. Once I figure it out, okay, I can kind of get into it. But for most guys that runs awesome optics, when they pick up a standard fire, man, they struggle.
I mean, adding on to that as well, when my team, we were at the range the other day as well, I decided I'm going to, because I'm not really a CZ guy, although I know CZ is a great firearm.
We're going to pray for you, Dan.
Yeah.
We're going to pray for you, Dan.
Like, I can't be perfect, you know. So
you said the Lord's still working. Yeah.
So my one buddy has a PO7.
Oh, nice.
So I ran some drills on the PO7, all that. Unfortunately, I shot the SIG P320, and my heart was just like, ooh, I love this thing. You know what I mean? So I just ran some drills of that, because at the end of the day, and this is the reality. This is the difference between the soft South African thing, I'm just going to say it as it is, and the Israeli thinking. And the way that I was trained and everything is, if you're in a situation and the reality is your friend could have his head shot off,
Definitely.
Right?
Definitely.
You are out of ammo. He's got a PO7 over there. Do you know how to take that PO7, what the safe is, what the slide release, what, you know what I mean? So, like, I think if we can summarize this section is, learn your own equipment. Make sure that your equipment is reliable. After the course I did, I don't care what it is. Does a primer get stuck by a firing pin? Does a bullet go out the barrel? That's it. I don't care what it is.
Yes.
When you are shooting around cover and you're taking incoming fire, you're not going to nicely line up your, your groupings are not going to be like this.
No, it's not, buddy.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if it's a firearm that works, that you can carry, that you've trained with and whatever, that's all that matters, you know.
Definitely.
And I mean, even like we were speaking about earlier, it's also firearm retention. I mean, before I went on the course as well, so many guys, and I was one of them, It's like, yeah, again, muscles, big guy, whatever. But the thing is, what happens if you got your firearm, or even if it's holstered,
Yeah.
someone
And a
grabs
guy
it
grabs-
from
yeah,
you? What do you
yeah,
do?
Yeah.
And I mean, everything that I would have done would have been the wrong thing to do until I learned the correct way. So that's why I'm saying it's the whole. I think that the South African obsession is a lot on firearms, where it should also be a lot of hand to hand. How do
Definitely.
because in South Africa, I mean, I spoke to a guy the other day, and no offense because I've got all respect for it, but there's a difference between MMA and there's a difference between
Of
this stuff,
course.
you know.
Of course.
So in South Africa, you're not going to be attacked in maybe the guy's not well, okay? He might attack you with fists, but in South Africa, it's going to be a knife and most probably a firearm. Let's just be honest.
Definitely.
It's most probably not going to be one guy. It's going to be a couple
Multiple.
of guys,
Yeah.
different angles, what.
Of course.
So, unfortunately, MMA doesn't help with dealing with weapons.
No.
Yes, you fit, you're a machine,
Of
and I have all
course.
love and respect.
Definitely.
But let's incorporate the firearm or the weapons, cold and hot weapons training into it as well, As well as, added to that, arresting techniques.
Yes.
If there's a guy who you need to detain,
Restrain, yeah.
how do you do that? Because I can tell you something, I thought I knew how to do it, but then when I learned how to do it, I learned the most brutal, in that training session, I cried.
sure.
Honestly, I cried. There
sure.
is nothing that you can do to get out of that. But in a church setting, if there's someone who you need to detain because remember, we can only lawfully detain.
100%.
So you have to wait for SAPS or the
To
South
come and
African
arrest,
for international
yes,
people to come and arrest and all that. But how do you do that? And how do you approach situations in such a way that you're not going to escalate the situation?
Yes.
Yes. Approach the guy with respect. Say, hey, my
Yes.
brother, listen, I feel the same way you do. Because remember, we are actually a church. Even though this guy's gone crazy or whatever,
Definitely.
we actually want to go to his level, say, listen, I understand with you, whatever. We want to actually help him come to give his life to God and to become a member of the church and all those kinds of things. So that's why it's a little bit different,
It's amazing that you're saying that, Dan, because I think on the previous podcast that I shot, I spoke exactly about that.
Yeah.
This is what makes church security so much different
Yeah.
than your normal just CPOs or your normal bouncers, etc. Is that you kind of have to understand that you're still responsible for the church's reputation.
Yes,
So
100%.
however you respond, buddy, you
100%.
either gonna get it right or you're gonna get it wrong. So for me, I know a lot of really awesome security specialists, close protection officers, bouncers, but I will not take them to do a church security.
Yeah.
I will not. They just don't have exactly what you're speaking about right now. They don't have the ability to first humble themselves down and be like, okay, you know what? We're not just gonna grab the guy,
Rough him up.
and then carry him out.
Yeah.
In a club, definitely. That's what we used to do. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But church security, very different. Now, you need to have that skill set to do that. And for me, something that you touched on earlier is exactly that. Is like, I'm grateful before I got into the firearms, etc. Now, I pretty much started shooting. I think I was 8 years old when my grandfather taught me to shoot. Yeah. And my grandfather passed away. I must have been just before 11 or around 11. Yeah. And then I had no more exposure to firearms. Okay. But that's pretty much where my love for firearms started. Awesome. But then when I started out within this industry, I started out as a bouncer. I didn't have a firearm. Yeah. You know, and all we really had was our hand-to-hand combat skills. And how can you work with these tools? Exactly. You know, back then it was a little different because not everyone had a camera phone. I feel sorry for the guys that does it now.
I was also a bouncer in those days. Yeah, it was just this.
100%.
Then weapons started coming in, and it became a bit hectic. You know.
For me, not even the weapons so much. I mean, the camera phone started coming in. So I feel sorry for the guys that has to do it now because I mean now they really have to think about everything.
And it's very formalized. You've got to be Sierra accredited or whatever.
No, definitely. But so for me, I came from the place where it was like, okay, I was a bouncer first. That's my reality. I understand how to fight with my back against the wall. I understand how to, not even think about the farm. For me, farm is like last resort, 100%, man. It's like 100%. An absolute... When you've failed at your job, when you've actually failed at your job, then you need to now rely on your farm. Now, 100%. Don't get me wrong. We need to have an incredible skill set. I mean, personally, for me, I try and get to the range at least 3 times a month. I try and get there every Friday. I try and make it to the range. Not always, possible with running my own business and clients and all of that. It's not always possible, but for the most part, I try to get to the range like a good few times a month because that skill set is probably when it goes wrong. That's the most needed. Everything else you can kind of recover from.
Yeah.
If you didn't speak to the guy correctly, yeah, you can kind of recover from it. And in bouncing, we used to have something called switch. So if you were
Yeah.
the first person that approached this guy,
Yeah.
and now he's directed his anger and frustration and aggravation on you,
Yeah.
your other guy comes and takes over.
Good cop,
and
bad cop.
100%, and he can kind of like diffuse the situation and calm the guy down. Awesome technique, right?
Yeah.
Even in the church environment. I've used that. I've used that a hell of a lot more times
Yeah.
than any other technique
Yeah.
ever. Switch is like the one in the church. 14 years.
Yeah.
I've used switch probably, I'd love to say over 1,000 times, where people are really angry at someone else, be it one of the ushers, be it one of the other security staff, etc. And I've come in at the right time and, like you said, hi ma'am, hi sir, I'm so sorry. No, I really understand. I feel for you. No, if I was you, I'd be equally as mad. I would be. However, you know what? As a church, there are still certain rules, etc. And this is why they do it. I know they probably didn't treat you very kindly when they did it. I'll take it up with them, And it's amazing that sometimes you can actually win that person over
100%.
without ever having to push the person, touch the person, restrain the person.
And that's what you want. A fight missed is a fight won.
100%. Now, a lot of guys
Yeah.
don't have that. And
Exactly.
that's why I said there's a lot of guys I won't take to do church security.
Yeah.
But now,
I just want to jump into that before we carry on. So just hold that thought. That's also why I believe in that phase of things, having females on your team is very important. Because oftentimes when you get a juiced up boykie who's like, who do you, whatever, to have a lady come in there to say exactly what you said. Because remember, with guys, it's the ego thing.
Yeah, testosterone
Lady coming
levels
in,
are high.
and it can just steer that thing a little bit. Yeah, but anyway, carry on.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. But on the other side of that, Dan, there's also obviously when we need that hard dude to do his job.
Yeah, absolutely lethal, ruthless, get the job done.
Now, I know you guys have an amazing leader that you guys have on your team.
Yeah.
And you obviously permitted to speak a bit about him.
100%,
Yeah, with his permission, of course. I mean, tell us.
So his name is Pastor Andre Lombard. So yeah, originally when we formed the team, we didn't quite know him, but we knew, obviously everyone knew of him. But yeah, long story short, Pastor Andre, I can't call him Andre because he's my pastor. He was drafted into the Recce's. Okay, so now remember, every guy who you speak to who was former SAPs or military or whatever, everyone was special forces, right? Okay. So now I'm at the point where I'm actually wondering whether any normal army people, because everyone is
Everyone is
you know what I
ex,
mean?
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, since was it the 70s or so? Yeah, the 70s when it's called the Dirty Dozen founded the Recce's and whatever. There's been something like 1,300 Recce's, official Recce's in the last 50 something years. So he is an actual Recce for 12 years.
Wow.
Some of the stuff that he's told me that is so out of what our cotton wool society can even imagine. But he's like the super version of you and I. Also 100% sold out for God.
Amazing.
He's actually Pastor Ut's right-hand man for CRC.
Okay.
So for us, it's for me, it's one of the biggest honors of my life. Firstly, to be in any way associated with Pastor Ut Boshoff, as well as Pastor Andre Lombard, because these are two very, very alpha male.
Yes.
And that's the thing is, I promise you, if CRC didn't exist anymore, I don't think I can fit into any other church because the church has become very feminized over many generations. That we won't go into that. But long story short, yeah, like Pastor Andre, he's now my brother and my mentor. So for me to fall under the leadership or in line with a former Recce, learn so much from him is just it's absolutely amazing. So yeah, I don't know what else you want me to say.
No, listen, man, I'm really happy for you to to touch on quite a few things that you've done with him, etc.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to mention that I think that's the difference is that there's a particular guy that is made up of you and me.
Yeah.
It's not the ordinary guy. It's not the sweet, the kind, the gentle guy.
Yeah.
It's just the guy that's fallen madly in love with the Lord.
100%.
That really decided, you know what, I could take all of this and use it for destruction.
Yeah.
But because I've met the Lord, because I'm genuinely sold out.
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, well, I mean, just to jump in, who Pastor Andre is.
Yeah.
So, like I said to you earlier, he got an offer to join Executive Outcomes. We all know
Sure. Yeah.
Executive Outcomes. He told me the other day he actually got an opportunity, was it 2010 or 2012, to work overseas, earn in dollars, and earn 600,000 Rand per month. Okay, because we know that's the kind of, well, that's quite high, but
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah.
To earn overseas, to earn in the region of 150,000 Rand per month is pretty much doable.
Sure.
So he turned down many opportunities to earn big money because he is loyal and faithful to God's purpose in his life, because he knows he's there to basically expand, well, not basically, to expand God's kingdom through CRC, working with Pastor Utz and all that kind of stuff. Obviously, there are many other churches be doing amazing jobs and all that kind of stuff as well. But he's like you said about yourself as well. He's turned down massive opportunities because at the end of the day, our loyalty actually comes first. It's to God. Because if it weren't for God's grace in our lives, I mean, I know that I haven't spoken to you about this, but I know the same will be for you. I can tell you that if it weren't for God's faithfulness to me, I would have been dead a long time ago.
Definitely.
As in, not even, I probably would have been in hell right now, to be honest. So God has been so faithful and loyal to us.
Yeah.
And people who God has made like us, we need to reciprocate that in how God has created
Definitely.
us. And it is it's a very lonely journey.
Crazy lonely.
Even in my own church, you know, dealing with, how can I say this without putting in a bad light, but you're going to come up against a lot of politics, a lot of people who don't understand why there is a need for people who can do brutal violence to protect good or innocent people, for to protect God's people.
Sure.
A lot of people will feel that now their ego is being bruised. You're trying to push them out of their role or whatever, but
and that's not the case.
It's really not the case.
It's not the case. Like, honestly speaking, I don't want to do what you do.
Yeah.
You from a different department,
Yeah.
I don't want to do what you do.
I mean,
Honestly,
for
I
me
don't.
to be an usher.
No.
I wouldn't. No, thanks.
So for me personally, I mean, I remember one particular conversation I had with a leader of mine once, and he asked me, like, what else would you like to do?
Yeah.
And I looked at him, and I genuinely sat there, and I'm starting to run through like all the other departments.
Yeah.
And all I said was nothing.
Yeah.
He goes, what do you mean?
Yeah.
I go, nothing.
Yeah.
Because there is nothing else that me not doing what I'm doing is honestly, that to me is rebellious towards God.
100%.
That to me is rebellious, because I've molded you to be who you are, to do what you do. Now other people don't have to understand me, Dan.
Yeah.
Other people don't have
Well,
to get. No, they don't. like most
True.
people. Let's face it.
Yeah.
We're looked at as the heathens
Yeah,
in
100%.
the church.
Yeah.
Yet we are those guys that goes, the only way to deflect bad people is to be good people who's skilled at violence that can deflect bad from the church.
Yeah.
You know, like, there's bad in the world. And we see it so clearly with, let's call it the last few years. There's been brutal attacks. I mean, look at that one video where the guys just kind of rocks up at a prayer meeting or something.
Yeah.
And then they start robbing the church, and they...
Was that in KZN?
That's the KZN, on the live feed.
Yeah, and they shot that guest pastor.
After that, and listen, man, there's just been so many. I mean, we can just kind of like roll so many up here right now, and just incidents after incident that we can display.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't know about it and don't see it. But
a lot of people don't want to know about it.
Don't want to know about it. Don't even want to admit it, because it's almost like no. Let's sweep that under the carpet. You know,
this is the house of God. They would never dare attack us. Yeah, that's their thinking. Yeah.
And then for us, we go, but because we have to live in the real world, because we
come from the real world.
We come from the real world. We've just made a conscious decision to not be that people, because our skill sets could make us very profitable in that. And let's face it, our skill sets could make us very profitable in doing what we're doing now. If we choose to step away from the church, etc., we could, make a lot of money. We spoke about this earlier. I mean, I think in my, since 2015 to now, I had 5 like really awesome opportunities where there's 2 of them that, like, the guys in the industry thought that I lost my mind. The guys just thought that I absolutely lost it. But to me, it was like, I'm committed to my church. I'm genuinely, like, 100%. There's no amount of money that can take me away from my pastor. There's no amount of money that can take me away from my church.
In our job, in terms of looking after the pastors and everything in the church, if you think about it, in my humble opinion, we've actually got pretty much one of the most important jobs there is,
Yes.
right? Because in my context, for example, if the sort of lead pastors get taken out or kidnapped, now remember, there's kidnappings happening all the time.
Every day.
In Pretoria, there was a kidnapping that happened at a church quite recently. And the thing is, churches don't want it to get out because then they know that people are going to feel unsafe coming in.
Yes.
So the thing is now, if we drop the protection on our main pastors, and I know that they're not the only people who are called and anointed. I know that there's other people, but
100%.
there's specific anointings on them for the
Yes.
ministries. Then that machine will kind of grind to a halt, in my opinion.
Sure.
Like, I know God is God. Nothing takes God by surprise. But in my opinion, looking after the people who are the tip of the spearhead, of the ministry,
Yes.
for me is one of the most important jobs to have. And I mean, and it's
Definitely.
also the most thankless job, in my opinion, because remember that nobody actually, I don't want to go into details, but I did a thing recently as well where I was literally like a fly on the wall in the room.
Wow.
Do you know what I mean? So it's lots of sort of politicians and, you know, all that kind of stuff. But the fact of the matter is that event went well. Yeah, I don't want to go into too much detail, but there was no threat or anything that took place in that this particular event. So the thing is that we're doing our job when everything goes well.
Yes.
But then at the same time, people don't really notice that because guess what? Everything goes well. But that's because we're doing our job. You see what I mean? So then what happens is the times where there are threats that come up, which, I mean, I'm allowed to say this now because Pastor Ut mentioned it last night. But recently, well, not recently, last week, actually, there was brutal threats on some of Pastor Ut's family members and all that kind of stuff, threatening to rape and hunt them down. Got information, like, you know, direct access. You know, I don't want to go into details or whatever the case is. But, you know, at the end of the day, this is the reality now that people, and I just want to like grab the church and just shake it and just say, wake up.
Yeah.
Because the threat is getting worse and worse. Violence, the Satan, like I said, in the spirit realm, things are going crazy.
Yeah.
Satan is behind the scenes,
Yeah.
working up all these people more and more to attack God's people, to attack God's leaders.
Definitely.
And it's almost like the church in South Africa has just like got its head in the sand.
Yeah.
You don't want to know about it. And
we don't want to speak about it. We
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
speak about it.
And I mean, that's why I'm so
Yeah.
glad that you're doing this podcast as well. And I mean, it's like a conversation we had while I was still on the course and all that. It's just so awesome to me that's like someone like you is actually doing this, spreading, you know, making people recognize that the threat is there and something needs to be done about it.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
So, yeah, that's all I want to say.
There's actually to go back to two lines previously to what you said was, there's men like us that keeps the wolf at bay.
Yeah.
And that's what leads many to believe that there is no wolf.
100%.
Do you know what I'm saying? And that's something that I live by. And that's almost something that I've carried around as a burden over the years, is because you don't know what I go through.
Yeah.
Do you know how many times I've had to climb out of my bed after 12 o'clock at night? Because security on campus is busy dealing with a drunk person, is busy dealing with a person that's high. I have to get out of bed. I have to go deal with that. But you come here on a Sunday morning and you're like, why does this need security?
Exactly.
Like, got this big guy standing around here. I wish that's what I did. Honestly, I wish all I did was just for 14 years come and stand around here. You know what I'm saying?
That's why guys like us have got to have very thick skin and remember at the end of the day, and the phrase that I don't know if it's used in other churches, but in CRC there's a phrase that's used a lot, which is audience of one. So it's like the audience that we're doing it is for one person, that's Jesus Christ, and that's it. So we must honor God in everything that we do, and we're not there to get recognition from anyone or anything. You know what I mean?
Sure. So I've had a couple of health challenges over the last few years.
Okay.
Starting 3 years ago with COVID, just massively. I mean, I was in hospital for 8 days.
Oh wow, sorry.
I was on oxygen for like 3 months.
Sure. Wow.
But
sorry.
For me, like, because I understand the calling on my life, because I understand like my responsibility.
Yeah.
All I did was focus on how to get back physically to be able to do what I do.
Yeah.
How to physically get back to a place of getting back on the road, running, getting back into boxing, getting back onto the range, shooting.
Yeah.
And just getting back to my purpose,
Awesome.
my calling, you know. And most people don't see that. They just see, oh, meathead
Yeah.
standing around here on a Sunday looking all brutal.
Yeah.
And that's really that's I wish I could say that was it, but
Yeah.
but there's so much more that we carry than
Yeah.
that, you know.
Yeah.
And I genuinely, Dan, I'm grateful. I'm genuinely grateful that there are guys in the world like yourself that chooses, you know, to use this mind frame,
Yeah.
to use this skill set that the Lord has blessed you with, because long before you did the causes, you had this way of thinking. Long
Yeah.
before you did the causes, you were molded into who you are
Yeah.
today. I often think about David. David, we all look at David, you know, and go, okay, cool. He fought Goliath and he won.
Yeah.
But that was not his preparation.
Exactly.
If we go back into it, you know, and we think about what preparation did he was actually trained by the Lord himself. Right? I think I look at it that way, you know.
Yeah.
There's a picture that I have in my mind of David's training. Think about it this way. It's a raining evening. This is genuinely, because I'm a visuals person. So this is literally like a picture that I have in my mind. It's like, think about it this way. So David,
Dreamstream, a place to create yourself. Record video, music, and podcasts in our full-service studio. Record video, music, and podcasts in our full-service studio. Dreamstream, a place to create yourself.
it's a raining evening. It's pouring, buddy.
Yeah.
And he's trying to walk the sheep into some cave. Next best thing, one of them slides down a slope and goes down. He genuinely, literally has to go down there, get this thing on his back, in the mud, walk his way back up. Talk about rocking, buddy. You know, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. I agree.
And those are scenarios that prepped him
Yeah.
to be who he is. And we see the glory story as, okay, cool, he came there, you know,
Yeah.
took down Goliath, awesome. But he was trained, you know, for so many years prior before that event, not with the other soldiers. He wasn't a soldier with the other soldiers.
Yeah.
But what did he go through to be molded? He was molded in a different way because he had a purpose, you know, on him. And I think that's guys like you and I.
Yeah.
Because long before, now I've done a couple of close protection courses at this point, just because I love the training and, you know, I feel like every course has something different that you're going to learn from it. Every school is going to teach you something different from the previous school. So there's always going to be something.
Always
that you
learning.
can take. 100%. But long before I did the training and any of that, I think that, like I said to you earlier, with Switch, that's something I learned in a club.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
From bouncers and stuff. But I used it in a church.
Yeah.
Now, those are often not things that your ordinary sweet corporate guy that's just coming to serve would have. You know what I'm saying? So we were really put together very differently. And then our past experiences has molded us into these characters that we are today. And again, you know, I think I'm going to sound like a broken record by the time we're done here, but it's liberating for me, Dad, to be able to have this relationship with you, because I do feel very misunderstood. I've always, it's something I've struggled with for many years. I've always been the misfit everywhere, like since growing up. I've just always been a misfit, but even more so in the church, dude, because here I am. I'm always like thinking about, man, what's the worst thing that could happen? Man, what if the smallest thing happens? Listen, what if something happens right now? I'm always working out scenarios. I'm always, you know, trying to up things. I'm always trying to better things. And, you know, you kind of get the reminder that, oh, but we're still a church. Now we're still a church. You know,
Well, I just want to add on to that quickly. The how can I say without sounding like a complete nutcase, but although I kind of am anyway. But just remember that sort of men have been, there's been a big, massive drive in social engineering to pacify men.
Yeah.
So strong men who stand up for what we believe in and stand up for the family unit, stand up for God's word and everything for quite a long time. That's been pushed down. Oh no, you can't, this in various kinds of ways. I won't go into that too much. So it's by design that people in general are too afraid now to stand up for what they believe. And it's just amazing to me, and we've said now a couple times that there are guys like us who still exist. Obviously not just men in specific, but women as well, who will just not compromise. We will not compromise on our beliefs. We will make a stand no matter what the consequence are. We will stand for our belief in God and for the church and whatever, and that's that. You know what I mean?
Awesome. Dan, in terms of training together, how important do you think it is for guys that, whether it's from a serving point of view or whether it's from a working point of view? And obviously, serving, everyone would understand that. But working would be through a company, etc. But how important would you say it is for guys to train together?
So I think that is the most important thing of all. I even said to my team this year, I said, guys, the theme of 2024 is training. So we've actually got an awesome range that we train, because now let's be honest about it. Remember, sports shooting,
very
tactical
different.
stuff, they don't work together.
Very different.
So we've got an awesome range in Brits, which is on a guy's Worms Plus with a backdrop mount and whatever. So we go and train there. But I mean, it's brutal drills. And I mean, a lot of what Idan has taught me, we've actually got a date set now for the 1st of June.
Awesome. On my birthday, by the way.
Oh, really? Okay, lekker. Yeah, awesome, man. So, we're just going to go out there. And I mean, like I'm saying, like in the course that I did, and as I mentioned earlier, on the 22nd of June, I'm starting Ronin as well.
Awesome.
As you said, courses are different. We're here to learn all that kind of stuff. But on the course I did, basically, I was brought to the point where I mean, the one night I took off my shirt. Now, this is when I came back, and I had bite marks all over my back. And my wife said to me, what are those things? And I'm like, what? And I didn't even know. And I looked on my back. I'm like, oh, those are bite marks. She's like, from what? And I said, from training. Because guess what? When you got a guy in a grip and he's got a gun or whatever, and he's not submitting, you will bite his ears,
of course,
eye gouge, flipping, no matter. There's no rules. The only rule is that guy must submit or die. Like, that's just, you know what I'm saying?
Definitely.
So yeah, like going back to the training question, we some of the ideas I won't share on a podcast.
Please don't.
But as much reality training as possible. That is, you must be physically exhausted. You must, because remember that the bad guys have got the element of surprise.
Of course.
So we are there for hours and hours, standing, doing our thing, and the biggest challenge that we face is staying sharp. But at least in my case, maybe my attention span is not all that great. So it's always staying sharp, having the discernment of the Holy Spirit in us. And I always pray this prayer: Father God, please open my eye to any threat that starts before it's even started. 100%. And I promise you, the 1st of January last year, that exact same thing happened. I turned to my wife and I said, I'm going to be going to the front soon.
Wow.
She said, what? Something happened, and I was already there. Wow. I was already there. So it's training together, being absolutely brutal. If it means that you're going to cry, you're going to bleed, you're going to have bite marks on your back, whatever, do it. Because I can tell you now, the people in South Africa are living in a fantasy world. The reality is, right, you will have guys with AK-47s.
Of course.
Okay? You will have guys who most probably are former military from
a different country.
Mozambican, whatever. They have a plan. They've been there. They've been watching you every single service. They know exactly generally who does what, where goes where, what the routes are that you can use to go out, whatever. They have a plan in place. And you can be sitting over there, you didn't really sleep all that well the night before, and this will happen. You didn't sleep well, you haven't eaten yet.
You had to fight with the missus.
Something. Your dog bit you, your kids hate you, whatever. You're not in the mood, and boom, there comes a AK or a stabbing or whatever. And it's just that switch, like we're talking about now, comes back to what is your training. Because your team needs to know who does what when. Do you have a team that responds to the actual threat? Okay. In that team, for example, do those guys have tourniquets?
Yes. Something basic.
Do those guys have chest seals?
Yes.
If your buddy gets, do you have extra ammo? The lights go off. Do you have a torch? If you need to arrest someone, do you have handcuffs? Do you have the equipment on you? Who are the guys who respond to that? Because at the end of the day, the best way to protect people is to put the threat down immediately.
Definitely.
You know what I mean? So what are your plans that you have in place? How do you recognize that threat even in the car park?
Definitely.
Do you have guys in the car park when someone is acting suspiciously? You can see maybe through their clothing they're a little bit
printing or
100%. Do you have a communication system or method or whatever in place? You can radio in to say, look,
Sure.
guy wearing a white shirt, I'm going to go
Yes.
speak to him, whatever.
Yes.
Go and have a conversation with him. Shaking someone's hand, looking in the eye.
Yes.
My name is Dan. It's great to
Sure.
meet you. How are you doing? You can pick up generally immediately.
100%.
what's going on.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
all those, and I'm just pleading to churches, if there's just one thing that through all this stuff that might have bored you, whatever
Yeah,
the case
yeah.
is, please, please, please take this seriously.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the camera. Take this seriously because it's people's lives, innocent, beautiful people's lives, mothers, children, whatever, that are at stake. And you are the leaders of your church.
Definitely.
It is your responsibility to make sure that as much as possible, your church members are safe. So please put in all of these security plans as a result of your risk assessments.
Yeah.
Put everything in place. So by the time they get through all of the layers, that's already been stopped.
Yeah.
The threat has already been stopped. Yeah. So
No, definitely.
yeah.
Dan, just like one can certainly feel your passion for this. And I mean,
Yeah.
I instantly knew. I mean, you and I have been talking a lot over the last couple of weeks and stuff. And even
Yeah.
when you were busy with your training with Aiden and that, and
Yeah.
your passion for this, man, is just it speaks for itself.
Yeah, well,
honestly,
likewise. Yeah.
yeah,
thanks.
no, genuinely, your passion, man, and I'm drawn to that. I'm drawn to guys that's passionate about protection, guys that's passionate about security.
Yeah.
And that's a very selfless thing,
Yeah.
you know. It's a very, very selfless thing to have. It's like you literally saying that, guys, out of everything in the world that I could be,
Yeah.
I want to be the idiot that when someone around me is in danger, I want to put my life on the line for you.
You run towards the gunfire.
We are
Yeah.
programmed to run towards the gunfire.
100%.
Where maybe it's unfair to say your husband, but maybe your husband is going to run away from gunfire, you know.
Most people would. I mean, it's yeah.
Exactly. So guys like us are a necessary evil.
Yeah.
If you want to call us that.
Yeah.
We are a necessary
We're righteous evil.
We're righteous evil.
Yeah.
Honestly, we are, you know.
Yeah.
And again, it takes good men that's skilled at violence,
Yeah.
you know, to stand up
Yeah.
against bad men
Yeah.
that are
100%.
violent
Yeah.
towards good people.
Yeah.
So we are the necessary evil.
Yeah.
Dan, for someone that's thinking about coming into security,
Yeah.
or a church has just started a security ministry,
Yes.
and they
Which
kind
they
of
should
looking-
already have in place
which
anyway.
which
Yeah.
I don't understand why they wouldn't.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
But what would you say? Where's the first place for them to start? It's a new church.
Yeah.
They are just asking a couple of men to stand up to,
Yeah.
you know, just protect us during
Yeah.
services, etc.
Yeah.
What would you say is a great place to start?
Well, obviously, like I have to give a very general reply to this.
Yes,
I don't really
yes,
know what happens in other churches.
Sure.
But I think if there isn't a team that exists,
Yeah.
approach one of the leaders or something,
Yeah.
preferably a guy who's as much wired like us as possible,
Sure.
and just start asking questions. I mean, it literally starts, and I love approaching situations like this by just asking questions. You're unassuming, you're not trying to insinuate anything,
Yeah.
but it's just like, look, if something were to happen,
Yeah.
what then? And that's something, some questions that I asked as well. So ask questions. And like we were talking about earlier, you know, even if there is an existing security team, which there should be leaders of churches, okay? And I just want to say as well,
Yeah.
it's not just Christian churches, right?
No.
Synagogues, you know, all the various religions and whatever.
Yes,
you know,
yes,
we're
yes.
not here, and I know that you feel the same.
Sure,
We're not here to tell them like you are misled, your religion is bad.
No, no,
okay?
no,
We're
no,
not.
no,
We are here
no.
to protect people in the places of
Worship.
worship.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
we are Christians. We believe what we believe.
Yeah.
But also, please, I'm pleading with you. If you are Muslim, if you are whatever you
Yeah.
are, put these security
Measures in place.
you know?
Yeah.
So going back to the question, ask questions. If there's an existing team that exists, go and speak to them. And I just want to say to you, it starts off with the meeting in the morning is 7:30 in the morning, right? Are you early? Because being on time is not good enough.
No.
Are you early? Do you need to have a little tag around your neck? Yes or no? Okay. Is it there? Are you in the correct attire that's needed?
Yeah.
Do you smell nice?
Yeah.
Have you brushed your teeth?
Yes,
Like I said,
like-
have you brushed your hair? It starts off
Yeah.
with the basics. When this, for example, the service is over or whatever, stuff needs to happen, whether it's maybe the offering or walking through the seats and aisles and just seeing
Yes.
does anyone leave anything.
Yes.
It's all about commitment. It's all about showing up, doing what's required of you and going the extra mile.
Definitely.
If you can't do that, then all of the stuff that we're talking about now, it can't exist because you are an unreliable person. And in this industry, you can be unreliable in other ministries, right? But in this industry, if you've got my back, okay, and there's a situation that happens and I can't rely on you, that means that I might die.
100%.
So there's no like this. We're not going to like tiptoe around this topic.
Sure.
If you cannot do the basics, please go and find another ministry because
No,
this ministry is not for you.
Yeah.
And I definitely do not want you, covering my back.
No, definitely.
So yeah, it just like I'm saying, starts off with the basics.
Yeah.
Please don't even worry about firearms and stuff yet. Okay.
Be reliable.
Just be reliable.
Yes.
The training thing, if you want to start up some training, even if you don't like, we have YouTube. We have YouTube.
No, literally.
Get a buddy, type in, like for example, now Krav Maga, disarm, gun, whatever.
Sure.
Practice. Be proactive. No one is going to do it for you.
Yeah.
If God has given you the calling and the mandate, make it happen.
Sure.
Too many times people sit back and they're like, this, that, whatever. Make sure that you invest in yourself and in your training for what God's purpose is.
Yes.
And then one day, if the firearms stuff is something that you want to get into or whatever, once you've then go there. But just please start off with the basics.
So also there's obviously every church needs to decide for themselves whether they want to be a church that has firearms on campus and whether they're not. That's like with any other organization. And every leadership needs to make that decision, right? Something that you and I won't really understand is why you wouldn't want to have a firearm, because what's expected to happen when a guy does stand up with a firearm? Do you get what I'm saying?
Sorry, have you finished your question?
No, go for it. Because I can hear where you're going to.
So I'm not going to name names. I love the guy and whatever, but one of the leaders on the normal team, whatever, said the other day, no, but if there's guys who come here to this church with guns or whatever, they're going to get murdered. They're going to, because, we 7,000, what. And I'm like, okay, listen, my friend, if someone stands up with an AK like that, who's going to exactly murder that guy? Because I want to see who that guy is, you know what I mean?
Sure.
So what is your question again? Sorry.
So every leadership, right, has to decide for themselves.
Yeah. So sorry. So, I just lost it then because I'm a very
visual.
visual.
Yeah, no, I can see.
So at the end of the day, you want to, let's just call it what it is, right? You can put up as many gun-free zone signs as you want to. The fact that they are criminals by definition, they are murderers by definition.
They've already made the decision.
Do you really think that they're going to now see this, this is a gun-free zone? Okay,
Yeah.
let me just take out mine, let me just put it over here, and let me just rather. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
The reality is that we are dealing in South Africa, and like I said to some guys last week, when it comes to this, we are no longer dealing with criminals who are just there to steal your watch and your cell phone.
Petty
actually,
crimes.
in South Africa, we are now starting to deal with terrorists.
Yeah.
We are dealing with terrorists it is their ambition, it is their calling on their life to attack the church, to attack God's people. If they do that and they die, they feel like their life's purpose is being achieved.
Sure.
So if you feel that you as a church member don't want to have firearms in your church or in the security team, I can understand where you're coming from in the way that we don't want bullets flying.
Yes,
around,
of course. There's innocent people, etc.
100%.
Yeah, we get that.
So, and I agree with that to a large extent. But there have to be some guys who are competent, who are trained, who do carry to make sure that the threat can be dealt with in the most extreme way, which in our context is firearms.
I'll be the first person to say, Dan, that not everyone on a security team should carry a firearm.
100%.
Because there are genuinely guys that are there to, let's call them the first responders. That's, listen, there's a disgruntled dad or whatever the case may be. You want to send that guy. But there kind of has to be a CAT team. Counter ambush team, or like what we would call it in the private security sector. The CAT team, the counter ambush team. So you're getting ambushed. There needs to be a counter assault team
100%.
that can deal with that, neutralize the threat before it becomes a problem to the innocent people. So there's definitely a place for everyone on the team. Not everyone deserves to carry a firearm because firstly, they don't have the heart that will deal with what needs to be dealt with. Secondly, the moment you put a firearm in that person's hand, you can very clearly see that they're more of a danger than anything else.
100%.
But I do believe that if your team is training together,
Yeah.
if you are going to be giving someone a firearm, please make sure that person is obviously competent.
Yeah.
Firstly compliant.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then genuinely competent.
Yeah.
Like, not he's got a competency.
Yeah.
No, he's competent.
Yeah. And he's got the mentality to keep a cool head.
So that's where I'm going to, because there's
Yeah.
different levels of competence. There's
Exactly.
competent by government standards.
Yeah.
Then there's competent by industry standards.
Yeah.
Then there is competent in this particular environment,
Yeah.
which you kind of have to understand that there's crowds here. There's a crowd. It's a
Yeah.
crowd.
Yeah.
People come to church. It's a crowd.
Yeah. Yeah.
Over and above, there's elderly women.
Yeah.
There's children. There's just females in the crowd.
And a lot of
So,
obstacles, sometimes chairs
obstacles,
and
exactly.
Yeah.
Things you can trip over,
Yeah.
have the thing go off by accident. So again, the importance of training,
Yeah.
the importance of knowing your environment,
Yeah.
the importance of the guys really having that understanding of what needs to happen
Yeah.
if there is an active shooter in the building,
Yeah.
if there is an attack coming from the outside. Because
Yeah.
let's face it, everyone has to come from the outside.
Yeah.
No one is raised up from the inside under a chair.
Yeah, yeah.
All threats needs to come
Exactly,
from outside.
exactly.
So surveillance type things. Again, like you touched on earlier, who is out there to kind of look in the car park while people are making their way to the auditorium, etc.
Yeah.
Is there someone that is trained that's looking
Yeah.
for suspicious behavior, for things that's out of place?
Yeah.
Who's monitoring the vehicles as the vehicles
Exactly.
are driving in?
Exactly.
Okay, there's 4 or 5 suspicious guys in the vehicle.
Yeah.
One guy got out to go in. 3 of them remains in the parking. Why?
Yeah.
The service is like 15, 20 minutes on. There's still 4 guys left in the vehicle, or 3 guys left in the vehicle. Why?
Yeah.
Who's going to deal with that?
Exactly.
How are we going to deal with that?
Yeah. And also adding on to that, the fact that we are actually on private property.
Yes.
So that property, you can also do the right of
Rights of admissions
rights
reserved.
of admission reserved.
Yes.
So I mean, also like.
But again, in order to enforce that, someone has to approach that vehicle.
Exactly.
Who's approaching the vehicle?
Yeah.
How are they approaching the vehicle? Because the moment you approach the vehicle, you're vulnerable. Remember, now there is no barriers, space and distance between you in that situation. And in any attack, you want to create space and distance so that you can have a better chance of one of two things. One, you either want to get away, or two, you want to be able to deal with it accordingly.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm going, who's going there to
Exactly.
speak to that people?
Exactly.
Now, what does that person have? Because you rock up there, knocking on the window, and that guy rolls down the window with a firearm stuck between your eyes. Guess what? You are now at the state of compliance. There is nothing. I don't care how much skill you have. I don't care what awesome firearm you're running, amazing optics you've got, what grain bullets you're using. I don't care. You are at the state of compliance right now in that situation. Now, that man's going to take all your communication. Okay, has the team prepared for something like this? Is there, how many forms of communication do you guys have? Are you all just relying on radios? Okay, cool. After one of your radios taken, now, awesome. Now your communication is bridged.
Exactly.
Now you don't have communication. So do you guys at least have 3-4 different layers of, communication? If one gets missing, what happens? If one of your guys gets taken and shoved into a passage or a vehicle or into one of the storerooms or whatever, can you guys carry on communicating knowing that that's gone? What other equipment does he now have that poses a direct threat to the team, to the leadership inside, to the congregation that you're trying to protect? So there's so many different things.
I mean, just to add on to that as well, if you are in a situation, I mean, I know that you talk about live fire situations, but where your team members do have to draw firearms or whatever.
Yes,
as you know, it's generally chaos. But it's also who are the guys who are actually on your team?
Yes.
Because there's like it's crazy. Okay, there's a guy I can sort of see, is that guy on my team? So it's also being able to identify your own team members. Have that plan and everything in place. I mean, something that Iran taught us is, and it's actually the Israeli way. If you watch Shin Bet and all that kind of stuff, on their ARs and stuff like that, and on their pistols, they've got yellow tape. So when you draw the firearm, you can immediately see, okay, here's a
yellow tape.
fellow operative from my team.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
So it's all those kinds of things. I mean, I know It's also been spoken about where sometimes you take a cap out of your
Yes,
that
yes,
says security
yes.
or like bright colors or
Yes, yes,
there's just and it all comes down to planning.
yes.
Firstly, you've got to get over yourself.
Yeah.
You got to get your head out of the sand and understand this is an imminent threat that's real. It's not so much a case of is it going to happen, it's
When
when
is it going to
gonna
happen? Of course.
and are we properly prepared for
it.
that, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Dan, awesome, man. Is there anything else that you'd like to unpack?
No, I just want to say thanks so much for having me on the show.
Yeah.
Like I touched on earlier, it's amazing to see that guys like you are taking this forward.
Sure.
It all comes down to awareness and education. We're not trying to sit here to tell people we know better or we
Of
are
course
something
not,
better.
yeah.
We actually, I mean, you know, I drove through from Pretoria and whatever.
To come and
I'm
have
here
this, yeah.
in all humility to try
Sure.
and get people just to please wake up
Yes.
and deal with this threat to save lives and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, just thanks for having me on the show.
Dan,
It's
thank
been an
you,
honor
man.
for me to be here, and
Yeah.
yeah, looking forward to the road ahead. Yeah.
Dan, from my side, bud, thank you. Thank you, because I know that you're taking time out of your life
Yeah.
to do this, and you've got various other things that you are
Yeah.
busy with. So, firstly, I appreciate this. And I genuinely hope that the church at large, you know, would
Yeah.
appreciate what has taken place here today. And
Yeah.
also just for you, taking of yourself, giving of yourself,
Yeah.
you know, rather giving of yourself, taking valuable time out of your life to be able to come and sit here and share all of this.
Yeah.
The one thing that I know for a fact is that the world is changing.
Yeah.
And very much in the security industry, we kind of like still very much like left behind. We still very much ancient. Now, when I came up within the industry, you know, it was very much guys never used to say that, oh, I'm a bodyguard. Like, and I'll say this again, when I started, it wasn't close protection, it was bodyguards, you know.
Yeah.
Guys never used to say that, listen, I'm a bodyguard. Guys were always, I don't know, software salesman or something crazy, which I totally get and I respect, and to a large degree because I was taught by the older Afrikaans generation.
Yeah.
I've touched on that a few times now
Yeah.
on both podcasts that I've shot already. That was my way. That was my introduction into it, and I think that's why I've got such very old school
That's
habits.
a great introduction. You almost can't get better than that. Yeah.
Well, listen, because listen, they grinded me,
Yeah.
you know. But I mean, this is also where I struggle, Dan, to operate with a lot of the new school guys,
100%.
is because I was taught from that really old school
Yeah.
Afrikaans dudes, man, the
Yeah.
dinosaurs of our industry,
Yeah.
and they are genuinely
guys who were
becoming
effective.
extinct. No, definitely.
Yeah,
And I call them dinosaurs because they almost extinct.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
To the point of that generation is busy dying out.
Yeah.
And I can only but imagine how they feel when they look at us new generations.
100%.
You know, we currently like the clowns running around here trying to do the lights, this and that.
Yeah.
We've almost neglected the foundation
Yeah.
of what these men has built for us.
Yeah. And
But-
I mean, just to add on to that, that's why I'm so honored that Pastor Andre Lambrax has taken me under his wing as well as my team,
Amazing, man.
because he is former Reiki Afrikaans boy,
Yes.
you know, all that kind of stuff.
Yes,
So
yes,
we still have that grounding in the
100%.
stuff that's effective and actually gets the job done. You know?
Yes.
Yeah.
But with all of that, we also have to understand that the world is changing.
Yeah.
And if we want to see change
Yeah.
within security,
Yeah.
within church safety, within church security, etc., this is the way that the world is
100%.
going.
Yeah.
You know, creating content, creating a podcast, putting it out there,
Yeah.
you know. So there'll be a lot of judgment for the fact that these two meatheads went up and they spoke about this.
I'm so used to being judged. I'm sure there's many Facebook groups and everything that's judging us. Join the club, whatever.
Definitely,
We've got a mandate,
definitely.
we've got a mission, and we're here to serve God and please God, and that's it.
Amen,
No, we
brother.
won't compromise on that. So,
No, definitely.
Yeah.
Dan, listen, man, thank you so much. Please, brother,
Cool.
keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you,
And
likewise.
again, just thank you for being a brother towards me.
Yeah.
You really just, this is an awesome relationship. And,
Yeah.
you know, iron sharpens iron. And I know that you've been sharpening me over the last while.
Yeah.
And we feed off each other's energy.
100%.
And, you know, just that pursuit to create excellent service
Yeah.
wherever we go. And you also more than just the security at church, you also currently moving into just security.
Yeah.
So guys can reach out to you. How
Yeah.
can they get you if they want to get your services, if they want to get you to come through?
I don't really have any like direct channel, but I've got a small little Instagram account that I've called Dan Hurlin CPO.
Okay.
So I've just uploaded a very small amount of the training videos and stuff that I've done.
Awesome.
Yeah. So if you just hit Dan Hurlin HURLIN CPO
Okay.
on Instagram, then just coin me an inbox message, and then hopefully I'll read it sometime.
Awesome.
I don't really read them, but yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. But thanks so much. Yeah.
Awesome, Dan. Again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much. Thank you for coming through. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for being willing to take that stand and to actually come and put your face and your voice out here.
Yeah.
We appreciate you. I appreciate you.
Cool.
Okay.
Likewise, I appreciate
Awesome.
you too. Yeah.
Guys, thank you. And as always, keep safe out there.